Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm your host, Marty Carpenter, joined today by Ryan Porter, founder, co-founder, and CEO of LVT. Ryan, it's your first time with us on the show. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you settle right in. So here, you're going to fly as the co-pilot, or maybe I'll be the co-pilot and you can be the pilot. But
I'll be the co-pilot.
All right.
You're the pilot. You're in charge.
Coming up on today's show, really interesting discussion we're going to have with Arizona Attorney General Kris Mayes. Before we get to that, though, CNBC investigated how stolen goods from organized retail crime wind up being resold. I think when people see some of these images and what's being sold or what's being stolen, what's being resold, and what's piling up, they're going to be astounded. So recently, a California ringleader was finally arrested after a several years long operation, an investigation that found her with $8 million worth of stolen goods. Her crew routinely stole from stores like Ulta Beauty locations. These were products that she assigned to her people to go steal and then resell, specifically resold them on Amazon and on other sites at deep discounts. So, Ryan, we see this type of operation. Sometimes we think of organized retail crime and it's like a big mafia type group. Right. But sometimes it's just a lady who's got a few people going out and stealing for her. And in this case, her husband was kind of working with her as well. But tell me about the impact here. How do these large multi-year thefts impact the retail industry and consumers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the general public looks at these. You see these news articles on TV, you read about it. It's obviously increasing. It's more often. And it's normal to think, well, how much of an impact can it have? These are massive retailers, hundreds or thousands of locations across the country. They make so much money. Does it really matter? Well, it's significant. And so how does it affect the consumer? Number one, it affects the margin for the retailer, their revenue and margin. So they're forced to now increase their prices of the product in the store. So the consumer is now paying a higher price for the product. But I think that's critical, that's important. I think the bigger issue is organized retail crime is bringing in an element of that has a negative effect on life safety and security. We see by design bad actors coming in to do these kind of crimes, and they bring in bad elements into these communities. I also think there's a target on what would be historically safe communities, not high crime communities, the average America. And I think the organized crime is targeting those because they might not be used to it as much, right? The people in those stores might not be as aware, so it's a greater target. So there's definitely this life safety to the employees that work in these locations, but also to the consumers and the customers that come in there. I think, in watching that article, we talk about the retailers, we talk about the online environments, that there's responsibility or potential responsibility, and they talk about a significant amount of money and capital that they're putting towards helping fight this with thousands of people. But the other element is the consumer. There's got to be a responsibility with the consumer. If I go online and I see a product that's 60, 70% discounted from what I can see it in the store, and I'm meeting somebody in a parking lot to buy that product, there's got to be something that says I'm doing something wrong here. This is not good. This is bad.
Yeah. We all have a role to play, right? The businesses themselves are trying to take some measures to make sure that people aren't stealing from them. Consumers can do their part by not buying what should at least raise a red flag that it might be stolen goods. And the police are doing their part as well. Security companies like LVT trying to help prevent these type of things. It really is interesting, though, because there is that initial loss. Like a store loses the goods and the revenue that come from the goods that are stolen. But how many times does someone have to be in a store where there's organized retail theft going on, especially when it's like a large group that comes in and ransacks a store? Like if I'm in a store and that happens, I'm probably less likely to go back to that store. Not that it's the store's fault, but I just now associate and say that's not a very safe place to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. in working with a lot of the large retailers, national retailers, it's surprising. I guess not surprising, but their focus is safety and security. Revenue is revenue. Obviously, it's business, and there's a financial metric that has to work there. But it's an incredible amount of effort and time spent on safety of the employees and safety of the customers on site.
Yeah, I think we can all agree we just want to be able to go to the store and buy things without having to worry about people running in and ransacking the place. All right, more to come on Retail's Most Wanted. Coming up next, our discussion with the Attorney General of Arizona. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with the Attorney General Alliance, where U.S. State Attorneys General collaborate on emerging legal issues and the rule of law at home and across borders. Learn more at agalliance.com. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. Arizona's Attorney General Kris Mayes is the first mom and second woman to hold that office. Raised in Prescott, she studied at Arizona State and Columbia universities before earning her law degree from ASU. Is it Forkham Devils? I think that's what it is. Mayes served in the Napolitano administration from 2003 to 2010, fostering job creation, consumer savings, clean energy initiatives, and water conservation. With a lifetime of public service, General Mayes is a lawyer for the people. General, thanks so much for being with us. Did I get that right with Arizona State? I don't know what you say, but that's the fork, right?
Right, absolutely. Go stand up.
All right, I want to make sure we got that right. Hey, let's start here today. You have an organized retail theft task force working out of your office. Tell us a little bit about the long-term goals of that team and why it was important for you to have such a team.
Yeah, we do. But first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Good to see you both. We do have an organized retail theft task force inside the Attorney General's office that partners with law enforcement and community members and businesses in Arizona, but also that partners with law enforcement in other parts of the country, because one of the things that we know is that organized retail theft tends to be something that gets organized across multiple states and spreads across multiple states. And so you can have scams that are impacting that started in California and then hopscotch over to Arizona or up to Utah or to Texas. But we've had this task force here in Arizona for a few years, and it's grown, and the importance of tackling this issue has only grown over the years. As we try to put an end to organized retail theft in our state. As you know, Arizona is a really, really fast-growing state, and we have, we depend on our businesses being able to operate free from the impacts of crime and theft, and so we believe it's really important to tackle this issue in a really comprehensive way that involves multiple law enforcement agencies.
Good. How do you see technology evolving in the fight against organized retail crime?
So I think technology is definitely going to be helpful as we continue to tackle this problem, and certainly we know with the bad guys are using technology and sometimes can turn technology against business in various ways. And so we need to be constantly working on ways to utilize technology to counter the bad guys and to tackle organized theft. The use of AI is a good example of where we can use technology to start to spot trends. Obviously, there are issues related to AI that I think we got to be careful about, whether it's protecting due process, people's due process, protecting civil rights. But certainly AI could be used to spot trends. I think that's one of the things that when I talk to businesses that they're so frustrated by is that there's this, they feel like and I think they're right, there's an onslaught of this kind of theft, and there's concerns obviously about them, and their personnel trying to go after it, the safety concerns of personnel inside stores. And so being able to use technology to prevent it in the first place and to spot the trends after the fact, I think it can be really important as we head down this path.
So I understand that recently your office announced a rather significant bust related to gift card cloning. Can you tell us more about how that scheme worked and how you busted it?
Yeah, this one was really crazy. We worked in conjunction with other law enforcement agencies to bust a gift card ring, and this was a scam that involved likely tens of thousands of gift cards that were cloned by the scammers. And the way it worked was they were basically stealing gift cards out of big box stores and retail stores, and they would take them all, the gift cards themselves, off the shelves. They would take them back to a location where they had cloning devices, and then they clone the gift card numbers or the gift cards, and then they would take them back to the store, put them back on the shelves. People would take those cards, try and buy them, and go ahead and buy them. And when they bought them at the checkout counter, when they were activated by the checkout employee, the gift card was then automatically drained of all of its money. And so people were basically buying empty gift cards. And so, and it's really awful and devastating. You give somebody a gift card for Christmas time or the holidays, and they end up with nothing on a card. Or you can imagine all the parents out there. You mentioned that I have a mom. Maybe you guys are dads, but you give a gift card to your teachers, right? You give gift cards to your teachers to thank them for all the hard work that they did during the year, and they end up with a gift card that has nothing loaded onto it. So we busted up that ring. It ended up seizing a whole bunch of these cloning machines and a whole bunch of gift cards themselves, and then use that as an opportunity to sort of try to educate the public about this and the different ways that you could protect yourself against the scam.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are some of the signs that consumers should look for to avoid having that happen to them?
Yeah, great question. So what we have told folks is, look, obviously gift cards are wonderful and we all use them and they're incredibly convenient. But if you're going to buy a gift card, number one, the best thing to do is double check the number on the gift card against the number on the receipt that you have. And if those two numbers are not the same, then there is a good chance that is a cloned or scammed gift card. A second, you can look for markings on the back, scratches, any changes to the gift card that looks strange. That could also be a sign that it's a cloned gift card. The other thing that we ask people to do or consider doing is maybe buy the gift cards that are closest to the register, because those are the least likely to actually be stolen or hardest to steal. So those are all ways that you can try to prevent yourself from ending up with a gift card that's been essentially already stolen.
So if the card number matches the receipt number, then it's a pretty good chance it's okay.
Yeah, there's a number that appears on your receipt, and then that should match up with the number that's on that card, usually on the back of the card.
Okay, great.
So an operation like this is obviously not just contained to Arizona. We're talking about a multi-state operation. How does your office work with other states to combat organized retail theft on a broader scale?
So we are working really hard on developing relationships with other law enforcement agencies. And really, this is sort of a very organic thing where we're making connections. Our special agents here, we have 60 investigators inside the AG's office. Not all of them work on organized retail theft, but a group of them do. And so we're making relationships with federal law enforcement agencies that are working on ORT, organized retail theft issues, making relationships with sheriff's departments, city police departments, and importantly also the actual retailers. So we have worked with the Arizona Retailers Association, for instance, on organized retail theft operations and efforts to stop crime. We work regularly with specific businesses like Walmart and others to find out what they're seeing, because they're obviously on the front lines of this, and so we're just doing everything we can to develop those relationships. So when, say, for instance, a police department in Southern California, and this is a real life example. I think we dealt with an organized retail theft situation that started in San Diego and then started to spread through the Southwest over to Texas and then ultimately up into the Northeast. That agency can then start to notify agencies across the country, hey, this is happening here, keep an eye out for it because it might well be coming your way.
All right. You also had a major significant baby formula bust. Can you give us an overview of what happened there?
Yeah, so this one was really crazy and also quite alarming and devastating in different ways. So we did engage in a huge bust of a ring that was stealing baby formula from big box stores, but also smaller retailers. And this was sort of during a time period, if you all recall, when it sort of was in the middle of and just after COVID, when baby formula was in short supply and the price of baby formula was already high. The price of different goods was already kind of high, and there was a shortage. And then we had this ring of criminals, basically, that essentially was stealing baby formula from shelves. You would at sometimes walk into big box stores and retailers in Arizona, and you couldn't get baby formula. Mm-hmm. And some of that was because it was literally being stolen by an organized theft ring. And so we went after them, busted the ring, and ended up seizing thousands of cans of baby formula. We had an evidence locker here at the Attorney General's office filled with baby formula, and I ended up doing a press conference with all of this seized baby formula, which in itself was terrible because it essentially was it couldn't be sold and right. Or resold. So they were stealing it and then transporting it to other states, including, I believe, up into the Northeast, up into New York and New York City, and reselling it in New York City. And so, that is something that not only affects businesses, it affects families, it affects the availability of an incredibly important thing, which is baby formula for families. And it also affects consumers because it drives up the price of the good.
Right. What challenges did your team face in uncovering this large-scale theft operation? How did you overcome those challenges?
Well, I think it was really sort of. I would think that the agents who worked on that case would answer that question by saying it was, initially identifying it. So it's likely that it was happening before we identified it. And then the fact that it was in multiple states and there were multiple states involved, I think that was one of the challenging aspects of this. So once we identified that it was happening in Arizona, we quickly kind of figured out that it was also happening in several other states. And so we went to work on working with law enforcement in those other states. And then, obviously taking down a ring like this is somewhat complicated. This was actually something, if I'm not mistaken, that involved individuals from other countries. And so individuals who were involved in the ring were from other countries. And so it was a complicated operation that we thought was necessary to do, and certainly it hopefully had a material positive impact on families and businesses in Arizona.
Yeah. Do you think when you're dealing with other states, law enforcement, and maybe even other countries, is there usually really good collaboration with law enforcement, or is it challenging?
We have found it to be good, and I think that there is a growing awareness of and interest in tackling organized retail theft. I think there's a growing understanding among law enforcement, attorney generals across the country that this is not just something that impacts business or big business, that it is something that actually impacts our entire economy and impacts families and individuals, because it drives up the price of clothing, baby food, gift cards, you name it, whatever it is that's being stolen, it impacts people. And I think from a safety standpoint, it's important to tackle this. I think about a lot when we do these operations. I think about the frontline workers inside the stores who are the ones who are also having to deal with this theft and having to worry about it and having to worry about whether they should confront it or not confront it when it's happening. And that safety issue, I think, we shouldn't let that get lost, because there is a safety component associated with this whenever there is any kind of organized theft happening.
Yeah, so lastly, how can the public support your efforts and help in preventing organized retail crime?
Well, I think the first thing is to know that you can always report this. If you see something, you can always report it to your state's Attorney General's office. You can report it to your local law enforcement office. Try to be aware of the various kinds of retail theft that can happen, like we were talking about with the gift cards. That's something that, if you're aware of it, if everybody's aware of it and everybody sort of protects themselves against it, it's going to be less attractive to the scammers, right? They're going to be less likely to try to do this because they're going to know they're not going to be able to get away with it. The other thing I would say, and I think this is also really important, is that sometimes these goods, the baby formula, clothing, etc., ends up getting resold on platforms like eBay. And certainly don't mean to pick on eBay, but an internet-based platform, stuff gets resold, right? If you see something that is just way too low priced, if the price is just ridiculously low, then it might be something that has been already stolen. So that's the kind of thing we see that, you might think about reporting that to law enforcement or letting somebody know. And we're obviously on the lookout for that kind of thing as well. But those are the kinds of things that we would love the public to do. To first of all, protect yourself to the degree that you can. And then if you see something weird or suspicious, especially something that's going on online, maybe think about letting law enforcement know about it.
And is that just local law enforcement, or is there in Arizona, is there a one number to call when you come across those type of things?
Yeah, I would say probably, think about contacting our office. Certainly you can contact local law enforcement in your specific city, but you can contact our office on our website at www.azag.gov /consumer. You can also call 602-542-8888. I'll repeat that, 602-542-8888. That's the Arizona Attorney General's office. If you're in another state, obviously that number would be different. But I would say most AGs across the country, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, are really now tackling this. This is a very bipartisan issue because obviously it's something that affects all of us and affects public safety, and every AG across the country cares about public safety.
Definitely. Well, General Mayes, thank you for your fighting organized retail crime, and thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsors, LVT and the Attorney General Alliance. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. You can also find us on X, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. Links are in the show notes below, no matter where you found this podcast today. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being with us, Ryan. Thanks for being with us, everyone. And as always, keep up the good fight.